Okay, they said I was overreacting. That it was just a few acres. And for a good cause. But when I watched the bulldozers tear through the soil my grandfather had plowed with his bare hands, I knew they hadn't just taken my land, they had taken my history, my roots. And that's when I decided, if they wanted my farm for a dog park, they'd have to walk their dogs through the walls I built around them. The sun rose the same way it always had over the ridge of Willow Creek. Golden, gentle, painting the fields in warmth. But that morning, it didn't feel like hope. It felt like goodbye. For 73 years, the Bennett farm had stood proud in the valley. My grandfather built it for nothing after returning from the war, and every nail, every fence post carried the sweat of our family's hands. I grew up here, learning to tell the weather by the wind, to plant corn by the moonlight, and to love the land like it was kin. But love wasn't enough, not in this world, not when signatures could erase generations. I remember the letter clearly. It came in a crisp white envelope stamped with the county seal. Notice of eminent domain, it said. I didn't even finish the first paragraph before the room started spinning. The local council had voted to seize my land, to turn it into a public dog park. A dog park. Not a hospital. Not a school. Not something that could save lives or build futures. A place for people to toss frisbees and let their pets run free, on the soil where my family had been buried. I stormed into the county office the next day, still wearing my work boots, covered in mud. The receptionist wouldn't even look up. "You'll have to take it up with the zoning board," she said. I did. I took it up with everyone. The board, the mayor, even the press. But every door I knocked on led to the same polite smile, the same empty promise that it's already been decided. The day the bulldozers came, I stood by the fence and watched. My neighbors waved at the workers, smiling, as if this was progress. "You'll be fine, Luke," they said. "It's for the community." But what they didn't understand was that this land was my community. It was where I raised my daughter, where my wife and I built our first barn, where my father's ashes were scattered beneath the oak tree on the hill. When the machines rolled in, something inside me broke. But another part of me hardened. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I just watched, quietly, and made a promise to myself. If they were taking my home, I'd make sure they never truly had it. Weeks later, when the construction finished, and they held their ribbon-cutting ceremony, the whole town showed up. Politicians smiled for cameras, kids ran with their dogs, and people called it a new chapter for Willow Creek. But I noticed something else that day. The land around the park, the hills and woods that stretched beyond the fence line, were still untouched, still for sale. So, I bought them, every acre I could afford, and some I couldn't. I sold my truck, took out loans, emptied what was left of my savings. The clerk at the courthouse gave me a strange look when I signed the last deed. "What are you planning to do with all that land?" he asked. I smiled. "Just protecting what's left," I said. Over the next few months, I quietly fenced off every access road, every path leading to the park. I didn't break any laws. I simply owned the only ways in or out. The county hadn't thought of that. They'd built a park with no real entrance. At first, people thought it was a mistake. They called, complained, petitioned. The council said they'd resolve it soon. But the gates stayed locked, and for the first time in months, I slept peacefully. Because they could take my land, but not my resolve. And deep down, I knew this wasn't revenge. It was a lesson. One they'd remember long after the grass grew wild and the laughter faded. They wanted to teach me about progress. I was going to teach them about pride. The first week after I sealed the entrances, there was laughter. People thought it was a mix-up. A clerical error, maybe. The local paper even joked about it. Opens. But no one can get in. I clipped that headline and pinned it to my refrigerator. Not out of pride, but as a reminder. By the second week, the laughter turned into frustration. Parents with strollers, retirees with leashes in hand. They all came and stood at the gates, staring at the Arvat Par Y No Trespassage signs that now lined the borders. They shook the locks, called the county office, even shouted into the woods, thinking maybe someone would hear. I heard every word. I was inside, sitting on the porch of the old farmhouse, sipping coffee as the wind carried their voices across the field. My dog Jasper lay beside me. The irony wasn't lost on me. A dog in the one place dogs weren't allowed. Then one morning, I got a visit. It was Mayor Randall, the same man who'd shaken hands and cut the ribbon on my family's grave. He pulled up in his polished black SUV, dust swirling around the tires, as if the land itself rejected his presence. "Luke," he said, stepping out and wiping imaginary dirt off his sleeve. "We need to talk." I didn't invite him to sit. About what? The weather? He forced a smile. About the situation. You've made your point, but this. He gestured toward the locked gate. This isn't sustainable. I leaned against the railing. Neither was losing my home. His smile faltered. You know the land seizure was legal. The park benefits the whole community. This, I interrupted, is me exercising my legal right. You took what you wanted. I took what's left. He sighed, rubbing his temple. Luke, you're angry. I get it. But punishing the townsfolk won't change what happened. I stared out toward the park, where the empty playground equipment glinted under the sun. You think this is punishment? No, this is memory. You all wanted to forget what was here before the park. I'm just making sure you can't. He left after that, muttering something about future negotiations. But I knew the county didn't negotiate with people like me. They'd rather wait until I broke. Or died. Months passed. The grass inside the park grew tall, weeds overtaking the picnic tables. The bright blue paint on the benches started to peel. What had been promised as a symbol of unity now stood silent and rotting. People stopped coming. The same neighbors who once cheered for the dog park now whispered when they saw me at the feed store. Some pitied me, others despised me. A few, the old farmers, the ones who still understood what land means, nodded respectfully. But the person I avoided most was my daughter, Sarah. She'd been 10 when her mother died and 18 when the county took the farm. She'd always been the hopeful one, the bridge between me and the world that was changing too fast. She came by one afternoon, standing on the porch with that look only daughters have, disappointment mixed with love. "Dad," she said softly, "you've made your stand. Maybe it's time to move on?" I didn't answer. "You've proved your point," she continued. "They know they were wrong. But you're still here, alone. What's left for you in this fight?" I turned to her, my voice low. "It's not about fighting, Sarah. It's about remembering. If I let them forget what they did, it happens again. To someone else. This land was our story. They can't just rewrite it." She shook her head, tears welling. "Maybe they can't. But you can't live forever trying to guard ghosts." When she left, I sat on that porch till nightfall, thinking about her words. And for the first time in months, I felt the weight of what I'd built. Not just fences, but walls between me and everything I loved. Then came the storm. It hit in early spring, fierce and unrelenting. The creek overflowed, trees fell, fences snapped. I was out there in the rain, trying to keep the animals safe, when I saw it. The park sign had blown down, the metal twisted in half, buried in mud. When the rain finally stopped, the town gathered to clean up. I saw them from afar, shoveling debris, helping each other. And that's when I noticed something that broke me. Sarah, standing by the park's fallen fence, handing out food, smiling through the mud. She saw me watching. Didn't say anything. Just nodded, like she was waiting for me to decide who I wanted to be. The next morning, I opened the gate. No big speech, no announcement. Just unlatched the lock and walked away. People came slowly at first, cautious, unsure. Then laughter returned, dogs running, kids playing, families together. The park was alive again. But this time, they knew whose land they walked on. The old oak at the center still stood, with a new sign beside it. One I'd made myself. This ground belonged to the Bennetts, a family who loved it enough to never forget. I didn't sell the land I'd bought. I kept it. Planted trees around the perimeter, wildflowers along the fence line. The park remained open, but every time someone entered, they did so through gates marked with my family's name. A year later, the mayor visited again, this time without his polished SUV or practiced grin. "You did good, Luke," he said quietly. "The park means more now because of you." I smiled faintly. Maybe it was never about stopping progress. Maybe it was about slowing it down long enough for people to see what they were losing. Now, when I walk those trails at sunset, I hear laughter again. And it doesn't sting anymore. Jasper trots beside me, tail wagging. Children run past, chasing their dogs through the tall grass. And I realize something powerful sometimes: the only way to win isn't by holding on, but by making sure what you love still matters when you let go. They claimed my farm for a dog park, so I bought the land around it. But in the end, I didn't close it to keep people out. I closed it so they'd remember what it took to open it again. And maybe that's what legacy really is. Not what you keep, but what you leave behind for others to cherish.